Okay, picking up on hole number 8. It's a little bit of mud there, and because of that we've had to put these pallets down and just kind of improve the footing around here. We're always looking for improvements like this to make on the course. This was done in the last year, and it kind of progressively got worse over the years, so we finally did something to it. Hole number 8 is typically one of the friendliest holes on the course for acing. However, there's one guardian tree that everybody likes or hates to hit, I should say. So pretty simply, you're basically shooting a straight shot there, but you've got a guardian tree there, and you've got one little bitty tree that just seems to survive through everything. It's been hit probably a million times and it's still there. We're hoping that it stays there because it just changes the entire hole. We're looking at a 181. It's a par 3 obviously, and not much elevation change. I think it's just a couple of feet lower than the tee box. So standing at the tee box, you're looking straight ahead there at the basket, but there's two guardian trees there that are grown together. If you're right-hand backhand shot, those two trees are going to typically keep you from acing it if you're counting on a fade. You almost have to go straight at the basket to ace it. You can't use a lot of fade to get in there. So from the tee box, about 35 feet in front of you, there's this little bitty tree, but you walk up to here and it's intimidating. It's a little small tree, but it totally changes the way you approach this hole. This tee box, we've had a lot of drainage issues actually along the whole course, so we've had to do things like over here we had to cut a little trench to divert the water to the creek. We try not to do a whole lot of interfering with things. We've got logs there to kind of direct the water over to the channel around the tee box. Typically, before we put in the new tee boxes, these tee boxes were pretty muddy and mushy and difficult to maintain at the best, and we'd put a lot of mulch and stuff there. So you look at this poor tree, it's just got nicks and stuff all over it, but it just keeps on healing and keeps growing. It's got new growth this year. We really want this tree and we really like to keep this tree. This poor thing takes a lot of shots. Typically on this hole, you cut it off short, and if you're right-hand backhand, you cut off left. It's very common to land over there. If you throw it a little bit further, but you still cut it off short and get around this big tree here, you're going to end up over in the field there. And it's okay, but if you go too far up in that area up there, you're kind of cut off from the basket by those bushes, so you kind of have to go around the corner to shoot your shot. That particular area going up this way also happens to be the fairway for hole number 16. So as you're going this way on hole 8, there are people going that way over there on hole 16, and there's really never really any interference between the two. But it's typically a straight shot right at the basket. You crash into these bushes. Normally it's pretty forgiving, but if you miss a run at an ace, don't be surprised if you end up over in those bushes quite a bit. This particular tree right here, like I said, this is kind of the guardian tree if you're right hand and you're throwing backhand. I've actually seen people come through that notch with the run at the basket, but the location of the basket is not really friendly to that gap. So if you actually get through that gap, it's not very likely that you're gonna hit the basket. It just doesn't, geometrically it doesn't work out that way. You can see some more vines growing on there, and it's just something we have to pay attention to. One of the things that I do typically around here, I don't get poison ivy, so as soon as I see that stuff and anybody points it out to me, I'll be the first one to pull it off there. So we do have poison ivy here that you have to be careful of, but we do try to pay attention to it and get rid of it. I'm specifically the one who does that because I'm the only one who I know that doesn't get it. So we do have that issue here. You have to be careful of that. Just keep your eyes peeled. We do try to maintain it as best possible. So this is hole 8. Looking back at the basket, looking back at the tee box, pretty much just a straight looking shot, but that little bitty guardian tree and this guardian tree changes everything. So looks like a straight shot, but good luck with that. And then on the entire left side of here is the main channel of the creek, so you don't want to throw right over too much. There's a little bit of a tree line 10 or 15 feet over there that'll help you out, but if you go right, you're probably going to end up down in the creek. I don't commonly see it, but it does happen. I've actually seen people actually play this hole from the tee box and go huge hyzer around even that big tree, like totally using the skyline and coming back in this way instead of the big straight shot where you're trying to get around that little tree. They'll just eliminate all of the trees and go big hyzer shot around everything up in that area up there, that's open part of the sky. So that's another option. I watched one group of 8 people play here one time, and every single one of them had a different approach to it. So whatever works for you is going to be different for everybody else. And once again, as you're exiting the basket, another sign to tell you which way to go. Now, again, this comes back to the fact that we've had a 9-hole course and then it became an 18-hole course. When it was a 9-hole course, we basically had everything on the left side of the creek. As we grew to 18 holes, we started building holes on the opposite side of the creek. So the configuration of the holes might seem a little bit discombobulated, but they're not, and we make sure we keep clear signage. So here we are from hole 8. It says hole 9, go this way, and basically you have to cross across the bridge to what I would call the back 5. There's 5 holes across the creek that you have to go to, and if you look at this sign right here, it will show hole 9 through 13 is to the right and hole 14 through 18 is to the left. So here's kind of a crossroads that you're going to come back to after you finish the back 5. We're walking across the bridge at the main creek, approaching the tee box for hole number 9, and just another typical thing that we've done in the past. We've had to clean up. This whole area here was very dense, kind of jungle-like, and if you look, we've got some, I believe these are berry trees, some type of berry trees, maybe elderberries or something, but we have some kind of berry trees there that we've planted in the past, and we're trying to get them to grow up and kind of reestablish the forest. Another really nice treat along the way, there's a mulberry tree here. We have 2 types of mulberry trees in this particular course. We have like the, I would call them burgundy colored berries, which would be, I would call the typical raspberries. And mulberries, and people eat them all the time off the tree as they're coming through the course. We have several of these mulberries throughout the course where people can just stop and snack on them. Doesn't hurt anybody or anything. We do have a couple white raspberries, but I don't know much about them. I only know that there's a couple of them that exist on the on the course. But there's 2 of them, and we have several of those along the way where you can just stop and get a berry treat when they're ripe. And they put out tons of mulberries. They're very healthy trees. So we're approaching the tee box on hole number 9. Basically, we're on the other side of the creek from where we originally started, and none of this existed when we had 9 holes. So looking at Hole number 9, we got 272 feet. It says like a 0 elevation, and it looks like you're basically throwing a straight shot up here, but in reality you have to have like just a really slow hyzer. If I'm throwing right hand backhand, you really need a really slow hyzer that's just pushing straight the whole way. So even though you're kind of straight ahead, you need a little bit of hyzer to get around everything. And it's, I wouldn't say 100% power, but it's pretty much a full shot. Almost everything you've got on it is what you want to get on it. Typically, you saw it off, you're going to hit very quickly on the left side. That's just kind of things are. So you want to hit that gap straight ahead. However, if you stay on that straight pathway, you're going to crash there. So when you get about half, 3/4 of the way up, you really want to start fading left, but you still want it to keep driving forward quite a bit. So there's not like a drastic angle here, but I'll just kind of take a pathway of it and show you kind of what's going on. Get a good view of it. Got a couple of trees on the left that keep you from just throwing straight at the basket. So if you saw it off short, you're stuck here right away. You can go low under these trees if you've got a good shot. It's kind of a chancy roll of the dice thing to try to go underneath it. But typically what I shoot on a birdie shot here, I'm going to shoot as far as I can, hard as I can. I actually use a gateway disc for this called a spear, and they've been great with working with us on this course. But this tree typically right here is going to be what keeps you from really getting close to the basket. So if I hit anything on a good shot if a good run at the basket and I hit anything, it's probably this tree, because it's just kind of in a crucial area. In order to access the tee box, you have to have a really good heart straight-ish shot. If you want to get a good shot out here and lay it and let it fade back to the left, that can happen, but this tree is kind of a guardian against that. We're not removing it, it's just another challenge along the way. So I typically come up this right side and then come back to left, but on a perfect day, I'm basically landing here and skipping toward the basket because my shot is rounding back towards the basket from the tee box on a hyzer. So that's just a right-hand shot, and that's just my shot, but that's be typical. Very friendly green, not really very big. I'd say maybe 15-foot radius to work with here. It's not a huge green, but definitely doable. And here's another area where we just had some storm damage that we cleaned up. Last week we had some tree damage that we had to come up and clean up. So walking right past the basket, I'm on the pathway up to hole number 10, and I'm probably going to stop the video on 11 heading back to the vehicle. So you're going uphill around the corner, and here we are, hole number 10. Somebody's given us a sticker, a free sticker for whatever reason. And it's a par 3, about a 3-foot elevation it says. Here we are. There's the basket. You have to make it through a group of trees here right in the middle. They're pretty tight. That's really one of the bigger challenges on this hole, and not too many people get through those trees. Typically, if there's 5 of us playing, 2 of us will hit those trees and 3 of us will make it through. Kind of a typical shot. So standing at the tee box here, look, as soon as you look straight ahead, there's a branch going almost horizontally here right in front of us. That's a challenge. We hit that, we skip off of it, blah blah blah. That's definitely an interference. But if you get further along, you'll see you've got a bunch of trees there that you're trying to access, and it's kind of, I don't know if this is right to say this, but if you can hit that gap right there and then fade after the trees, you're got your best shot. But my typical shot is I'm throwing a huge hyzer shot that's turning left the entire time, and it's up almost on its edge to make the disc skinnier going through those trees. So my disc typically is not level coming through, but it's usually tipped on a 45, fading left, and it's a really good shot for this hole. It's possible. I can tell you that we do hit that pretty often, even though this looks intimidating and trying to get through these trees. We do hit them often, but you get a good tilted shot turning left the whole time, you've got really good chance of getting through these things. And I'll point this out where I just stepped there. This is another channel where water comes through, and it's never an issue, but that would be typical of this course. There's a farm up there where we have water going through the course, and we just have to keep an eye out, maintain it, make sure it's not washing everything away. You have to have those channels in here to get the water to keep moving. So at the end of this hole, it opens up to a bigger area, and then there's a bush line that separates this hole from the next hole. That bush line down there is a very common area for people to land on this hole. They just throw it too hard. They're just trying to get past the trees, and they don't get it to fade off to the left. So standing here, just looking here at what I would call the bend area, you can see the basket on the left here. And if I had to describe this hole, it's almost like when we're standing at the tee box, it's almost like a question mark where you had to go, at the very end, you had to go around and take a hard left. So this basket, we've cleaned up this corner quite a bit since we first started. And we're always having to maintain and pull these things back to tame them. But this basket is really far on the left. It's not visible from the tee pad. And we have made a couple changes to this hole, not the basket location or the tee location so much, but this green used to be maybe 10 feet around the basket. Now it's more like 20 feet around the basket. So we've opened that up quite a bit over the years. And that pile of wood right there is the remnants from that a couple years ago. I think we might have done that 2 years ago. But that's a pile of wood that you'll see around here that we've just cleaned up things and kind of put the wood there to refeed the forest, and all that stuff is useful for the animals and plants and stuff around here. They will use those nutrients. So I'm just finishing the walk to hole number 11. Hole number 11 is 195 feet. It says there's a 14-foot drop, and it's very casual drop. On a right-hand shot, looking at the tee box here, you basically want to throw straight ahead. If I'm a right hand, I'm going to throw forehand, and as soon as I get this bend, I'm going to want it to turn to the right. So forehand to the right if you're right-handed. This plays well for left-handers, but it's very, very typical for people to cut it short, land over here. It's also very typical for people to hit that straight ahead where it just doesn't fade or doesn't turn quickly enough. So that's a really common area, and then this area along here is a really common area for people to land. Whatever reason, this is not really much of a common area where people make a mistake. But this opens up into the green down there, and it's another interesting, challenging hole that doesn't look like any other one. It reminds you a little bit of hole number 2, and you might actually be able to use the exact same shot on both of them. That would work. You're basically going downhill and then you're turning right. 2 has a little bit of different elevation, but it's a very similar hole. And while I'm here, this is one of the benches that Joe built. Joe's another one of the guys who works here. And these benches that you've seen around here are all recycled back into the course. That is a black locust bench that we have cut. Joe has milled and cut into a bench, and then we've come back up here and reinstalled it on the course. That's actually one of the newest benches, but those are typical around here. You'll see those benches around here that Joe has built for us. I built one or two of them just out of scrap stuff that almost look like his, but they're not near the quality, and they were just kind of jumbled together to reuse the wood. So on the left here we've got these, just whatever kinds of weeds these are. I'm not sure what they are, but they're about 2 or 3 feet. So that's another thing where it's typical. We've got to get down here with a brush cutter or some kind of tool and get rid of this stuff. A couple times a year we have to do this. It doesn't sound like much, and I might be overstating that we actually have this stuff, but if we did not maintain this stuff as often as it needs to be maintained, it would just take over and just keep growing and growing and growing and be a problem. So the maintenance is very, very important. Even if it's just a little bit, a few minutes here and a few minutes there that we do this stuff, that's important. So we've got that all along the left side here. That would be typical of many places on the course where we just have to make sure that we're maintaining stuff. And I'm kind of at what I would call the bend here. So looking back up the tee box, basically a straight shot to here. You want to start bending here and then turning right towards the basket. So you can't really see the basket from the tee box, but there it is in all of its glory. And here's the first, I'm not sure if this is the first one we planted or just the first successful one or whatever, but we have our first green needle tree right here, and it's one of the very few green needle trees in this forest that's actually been successful. You can walk through the course and you can see little tiny saplings that are green needles, but they never quite mature. This is the one of the few green needle trees that's actually started growing here, so that's nice. Had some water issues there, so we typically will get mulch back from the city that we give them the wood that we take from the course. They mulch it and they give us this mulch, and we typically will use this to fill in spaces to raise it. For water issues, elevation issues, the tee box is very friendly. We used to have a lot of water problems with this tee box, and this spring especially, but now, which it's July now, it's very nice, very friendly. It's not horrible. Anywhere around these courses you're going to find thorns and poison ivy and this and that, so that stuff does exist, but it's a friendly friendly tee box, friendly green to approach this basket. And then once again you have a sign here showing hole 12 and moving on to hole 12, the basket. This particular walkway right here, I'm going to finish up the video right now. This particular walkway has pallets underneath it to raise up the grade, and then has a couple tons of mulch on top of it to just make a natural walkway through here. And this is something we have to kind of maintain and keep it raised up, because we are in a low-lying area and we do have to divert water. Whether it's a lot or a little bit, we always have to do it. So within the last month, this is something I've just done with Lou, I believe. I just came through with my lawn tractors and my trailer and hauled and dumped this mulch here. This tee box was pretty muddy. This is one of the few that we don't have tee boxes on, so typically we're going to have to put mulch here just to make it usable until we get our tee boxes in. And I'm going to end this video there and pick up where that left off.